Shabbat Shalom, Yashra'al. Welcome again to Watchmen of the Faith Ministries. My name is Kasada Ba. Now, the title of today's show is called Yahusha HaMashiach, Conclusive Evidence. All right? Again, the title of today's show is called Yahusha HaMashiach, Conclusive Evidence. Now, a lot of you who's been following my shows have noticed that I've been on this kick now for a very long time, trying to prove with conclusive evidence that the Messiah existed from the very beginning. Now, the reason why I'm on this trip here is because I believe that it's conclusive. I believe that it's conclusive that the Messiah existed from the very beginning. That's my ministry. I'm bent on that, and I'm not going to deviate from that. All right, because for me, the evidence is crystal clear, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we need this mediator to reconnect us back to the Father. Okay, I'm going to say it again. We need this mediator to reconnect us back to the Father. All right. Now, first and foremost, all respect and honor is due to the Father, Ab Yahuwah, for offering his ultimate love gift, Yahusha HaMashiach, to be that perfect atoning sacrifice. And that's going to be the key word there. That perfect atoning sacrifice to bridge back the relationship of the children to the Father. All right. Now, the reason why this relationship has to be brought back because of what happened in the Garden of Eden. That line of communication or that relationship that the nation of Israel had with the Father was broken because of sin. What is sin? Sin is the transgression of the law. All right. So again, that mediator is very important, and that mediator now has to be that perfect atoning sacrifice to bring us back into covenant relationship with Ab Yahuwah. And that perfect atoning sacrifice was Yahusha HaMashiach. Now, what I want to do, all right, is bring out a very important word that might help us to get a better understanding on the redemptive role of the Messiah, is the word relationship. All right. This word relationship. Now, this word relationship is so important because it's associated with the word wedding or an agreement. In order for a body or anybody to get along, and this is just a quick little definition here, there has to be a relationship. If there's a relationship, the program can't work. All right. So we see this in our everyday lives with our wives. We see this word very important, okay, with our children. In every single thing that we do, there must be a relationship. And if either of the parties disagree, there is no relationship. And in order to bring back this relationship because somebody goes astray, what usually happens now is that the stronger one, which is going to be the father, he sends a mediator, and that mediator's job is to bring back the lost sheep of the house of Israel back into covenant relationship. And again, this usually happens when a relationship goes sour. When a relationship goes sour, what usually happens now is that, take for instance, a man might send his best friend out to try to retrieve or bring some type of sense to his Isha or to his wife to say, listen, you know what? I believe that we need to sit down, discuss this matter here so that we can continue or bring back this relationship. Now, this is important. When coming back to the relationship, the original rules don't change. All right. This is something that Christianity preaches. They believe that in order for there to be a successful relationship, things needed to be changed in the ketubah or in the wedding vows. But that's not scriptural. All right. So what the bride has to do is come back into the original writings. All right. To the original ketubah or the original vows that the Father set up from the very beginning. And if the bride can do that, we can now rekindle this relationship. But we need a mediator. All right. We need a mediator. Now, to prove this now, let's go to the book of Bereshit or the book of Genesis. And I'm going to be reading chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. All right. This is the book of Bereshit or the book of Genesis. And I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 3. It says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form, and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. Now, like I always say, it is very important that we try to learn a little Ibri, because it helps us to get a better understanding on what the scriptures is trying to relate to us. All right, that is so important. I can never say that enough. Now, I read that from the King James version. What I want to do now is just read just a little bit, not a whole lot, from the Interlinear Bible, Hebrew, Greek, and English. I want to read Genesis 1 through 3, but I'm just going to read verse 1 in Hebrew, and the rest I'll read in English. All right, because this is not going to be a Hebrew teaching class. It's just that there's a few things that I want to point out that I believe might give us a better understanding on this word relationship and what was actually the redemptive role of the Messiah, okay, in trying to bring back this lost sheep back in covenant relationship with the Father. All right, I'm just going to read verse 1 in Hebrew. Bereshit bara Elohim. Then we have the Olive Tav. That Olive Tav is very important, and that Olive Tav symbol that's between this creation is looked at like this in the Paleo. We have the Olive Tav, or in the Aramaic, we have, I do this a lot, so we should be familiar with this. Or we have the Olive Tav, or some people might say the Olive Tav, or the Olive Tha, or the Olive Ta. I even seen it with the U. Okay, but we should all know the gist of what's going on here. And again, we see now with in between the first three words in Hebrew, we have the Olive Tav standing in the middle. All right, so there's something standing in the middle, and that middle is the Olive Tav. We have Hashemayim or Hashemim, which means the heavens. We have now another important symbol. We have a U. We have a U placed in front of the Olive Tav, and we'll get into that a little bit later, because that's going to be very important. So we have the U Olive Tav, which they have translated as and then we have, what do we have? We have Ha'atzaratz, which means the earth. Then we have the U Atzaratz again. Okay, so it just says here, in the beginning created Elohim, Olive Tav, the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and empty, and darkness on the face of the deep. And the spirit or the rock of Elohim moved on the face of the waters. Then said Elohim, let there be light. Okay, I just wanted to stop there. Now I just want to read from one more source. All right, and again, this is very important. Now it does connect. All right, it really does connect with this word relationship. I'm going to be reading from the Olive Tav scriptures. Okay, because this Hebrew is going to be very, very important. Very important. Very, very important. In the beginning created Elohim Olive Tav, the heavens, U Olive Tav, and the earth. And the earth was become chaotic and void. The earth has or was become or became chaotic and void. And darkness was over the surface of the abyss. The spirit or the rock of Elohim vibrated or moved or hovered over the surface of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. And Elohim saw Olive Tav, the light, and that it was good. Now, I just want to stop right there because I don't want to go too much into the Hebrew. But what we should notice now is that it said, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. So with that understanding now that Olive Tav created the heavens and the earth, we see at one point that there was a relationship between the Arats, the earth, and the Shamayim, or the heavens. There was that relationship. So, but as we begin to read on, it talked about that chaos began to happen. So when that chaos happened now, there was no longer this relationship. So again, in the very beginning stages of this whole creation here now, there was a relationship between heaven and earth. The earth became chaotic. We're not going to get into right now what caused the earth to become chaotic. I just want to capitalize on the point now that there was a time when there was a relationship between heaven and earth. Now, it also talked about now darkness. Darkness was upon the face of the deep, or on the face of the earth. Now, that darkness now can also be associated with no TORAH, lawlessness. All right? I'm going to do a little something here, so just bear with me. When it talks about, and there was darkness upon the face of the earth, in order for there now to be a relationship between heaven and earth, something was created. And that thing that was created was called light. All right? And that word light in Hebrew is the word or. Okay, the word or. We have the Aleph, we have the U, and we have the Resh. All right, the Aleph, some people put it on with the A. We have the U, which represents the nail or the peg, the fastener, and then we have the Resh, which represents the head. Okay, my argument is this, is that this light, okay, that was used to bring back this relationship that was originally established before between the heaven and the earth, this or right here is Yahusha HaMashiach. This is Yahusha. Again, this light that shined in the darkness because the world was in a chaotic state. So prior to the Messiah coming, or prior to this light, the world was in darkness. And what the Father was using to bridge or bring back order into the earth again was this or, and this or is Yahusha HaMashiach. And I broke down here the Aleph, the U, the nail of the peg, the Resh is the head. So within this symbol here, if we were to read it without any translation, any English translation, this word brings us back to Yahusha. Now, again, I don't want to go into the New Testament, but it does say in the New Testament, just for this particular cause here now, is that prior to the Messiah coming, okay, the world was in darkness. And when that light did come, all right, this light was the light of the world. All right, so I just wanted to bring that to our attention so that we can get a better understanding through prophetic shadow pictures what this whole thing is about. All right, so now I also want to bring to the table is that I do understand now that what is conclusive to me might not be conclusive to everybody. All right, I do understand that. I'm going to say it again. What might be conclusive to me, I do understand that it might not be conclusive evidence to others. Especially, again, what's going on in today's YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and things of that sort, where there's a lot of brothers out there pushing that the Messiah never existed. But for me, those of us that are Messianic believers, we believe that it's conclusive. The evidence stands firm without a shadow of a doubt that the Messiah existed from the very beginning. I heard some arguments that what we as Messianic believers have done is that we've simply taken a Greek Jesus and put a Hebraic perspective on it. All right, and that's not what we did. All right, I've also heard teachings that Tammuz is actually a retelling of the story of Jesus, who we now call Yahusha HaMashiach. All right. Now, but what I want to do, all right, I want to go through scripture to prove again that is conclusive. All right. The Messiah existed from the very beginning. Let's go to the book of Yeshayahu, the book of Isaiah, 41:17 to 21. All right, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be reading this from a Hebraic perspective. All right, a Hebraic perspective, because there's something that I'm trying to do here. Something that I'm trying to do. I want to bring out the importance of Olive Tav, Yahusha HaMashiach. So this is 41. I'm going to read verse 17 down to 21. It says, the poor and the needy seek water. The poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongues fail for thirst. I, Yahuwah. Now, this takes nothing away from the Father, okay? Yahuwah, when I say Yahuwah, I'm talking about the Tetragrammaton here. We're talking about Yahuwah, all right? I, Yahuwah, will answer them. I, the Elohim of Yashra'al, will not forsake them. Verse 18, I will open rivers on the bare heights and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. I will put in the wilderness the cedar, the acacia, and the myrtle and the oil tree. I will set in the desert the fir tree, the pine, and the box tree together, that they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of Yahuwah, okay, the hand of Yahuwah has done. Then we see something very important. We see the Zayin, okay, Olive Tav. The Zayin Olive Tav. This Zayin here represents a weapon, okay? Or, and a weapon is used to cut. And the word cut, again, is associated with the word brit, which was a commandment that Israel performed, or the Father performed on behalf of Israel. Because I talked about this before, Genesis, the 15th chapter, when you read verses like down to 9 to like 14, it talks about this cutting, this weapon. And we see now in this particular scripture here, we see that the Yahuwah is connected to a Zayin Olive Tav. Now, this, again, this Zayin Olive Tav, this Zayin represents a weapon to cut or to break Olive Tav, which lets us know now that there is a relationship between the Father and the Son. And that relationship started with a cutting. All right, there was a cutting. Just like there was a cutting when we see the creation of Adam and Hava. There was a cutting, and after the cutting, we see now that this relationship began to be an actual relationship in the story of Adam and Eve. All right, so again, only thing that I'm trying to do here, I don't want to say it to be complicated. It's just that I want to show now in the scriptures the importance of Olive Tav and the importance of this word right here, relationship. All right, I just wanted to do that. Read, did I get down to verse 21? And that they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of Yahuwah has done the Zayin Olive Tav, this, and the Holy One, or the set apart one of Yashra'al has created it. So, what this is just saying is simple, that now, through this grand authoritative figure here, Yahuwah, everything was created through Olive Tav. Olive Tav is the one and only ambassador, the son of Yahuwah, who qualified to be that atoning sacrifice for the nation of Israel. And again, one more time, this Zayin is very, very important. Because if you read this now in the King James Version Bible, any other version Bible, you might not see that Zayin. All right, and that Zayin is associated now with relationships, cutting, and is also used as a weapon. Now, what also happened, okay, with the show that I did about 2 weeks ago, there was something that interesting happened. There was one brother who called in, or who wrote in, and he had a very legitimate question. All right, in the show entitled Yahuwah and the Blood Covenant, there were three questions, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get to all three questions today. If I don't, I promise through the spirit of Yahusha HaMashiach, what I'm going to do now is I have to do a part two so we can get a better understanding of what's going on here. The first question was, for me to prove that the Messiah existed that the Messiah existed prior to the Brit Hadashah. How can a man atone for the sins of mankind? Will there be animal sacrifices in the millennium reign of Yahusha HaMashiach? Okay, I'm going to read the questions again. Can I prove that the Messiah existed prior to the Brit Hadashah? And can a man atone for the sins of mankind? And will there be sacrifices? Will there be sacrifices in the new millennium of the Messiah's reign? And what I want to do first now is handle the first question first. And in order to understand my position in answering this question, I believe that there are four major facets, okay, in understanding the scripture. All right, I'm going to write these things down. It is very, very important. In order for us to understand how to read the scriptures, there are four levels that we must be familiar with. And these four levels are, one is what we call the Peshat level. Okay, the Peshat level. And the Peshat level is a frequent term with a lot of Messianic believers. And the Peshat level just means the literal meaning of the scripture. The literal meaning. Then we have what we call the Remez level. All right. The Remez level. And the Remez level simply means, this means the clue. We look for the clues, or we look for hints in the scripture, whether there's anything else behind the literal meaning. All right. So again, the Remez level brings us to where we begin to look for clues and hints, because again, there's more to the scripture than the literal meaning of just the basic reading of these scriptures here. The third one is the Drash level. The Drash level. Now, the Drash level is another messianic term, all right, that which means to seek. It's to seek. And then we have the fourth level, which we call the Sod level, which where we begin to look at the mystery. The mystery level, or I call it sometimes the revelation. Okay, and in order to look at the scriptures from the Sod level, from the mystery level, you're going to have to be able to understand some Hebrew, and that's going to be the next thing that I wanted to talk about too. Is that the fifth level is that we would have to be able to understand a little bit of the language, not a lot, but if we can just be mindful that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the prophets were Ibri, Abri, they were Hebrews. So being that they were Hebrews, I feel that it is very important that we try to look at the scriptures from a Hebraic perspective. And when we look at it from a Hebraic perspective, it's going to take us now to the literal meaning of the scripture. Then from there, we can go to the Remez level, where we begin to look at the clues and the hints. After that, we go to the Drash level, where we begin to seek and look and see whether or not what we're saying, okay, to help prove our point, whether or not Yahusha HaMashiach existed, we first going to have to seek. And then once we seek now, we get this revelation of this mystery level that's not able, that a lot of people aren't able to see. And then again, and final, we're going to have to be able to look at the language or the context on how the story was written so that we would be able to put the whole picture together. All right. We must be able to do that. Now, to prove what I just said here, we're going to go to the book of Mishli, or the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs here, and we're going to see if we can get a better handle on everything that I just said here. The book of Proverbs, the 25th chapter, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 2. And so now these are also proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Yehuda, copied out. It says now, it is the esteem of Elohim to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. Now, when it talks about in verse 2, where it says it is the esteem of Yahuwah to conceal, okay, a thing. What is this thing, okay, that's been concealed? First and foremost, because of what happened in the Garden of Eden, all right, the right way of following Torah has been hidden from our eyes because of our pride. I'm going to say it again. The reason why these things are hidden, or the correct understanding of Torah is hidden or concealed, is because of pride. So my argument is this, is that thing that is concealed is right reasoning, right understanding of Torah. So when it says now, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. That word matter is very important, okay? I'm going to leave this up for a minute because I'm going to have to erase this because I'm going to be doing a lot of writing here today, because the sole purpose, again, of this show is to show throughout Scripture that this word relationship is very important, and we want to prove that Yahusha HaMashiach can be found in the Scripture, in the Torah now, through conclusive evidence. All right? Conclusive evidence. Just bear with me 1 second here. Let me erase this. Get a little brush here. The board's getting dry. Let me wet this up a little bit. Give me 1 second. 1 second here. 1 second. Okay, I'm going to still keep this as simple as possible, but there's going to be a little, we're going to go a little bit beyond the literal meaning, okay, of scriptures here, all right? So I just want to make sure that I take my time, and if there's any questions regarding anything that I'm saying, like I say always, please leave a message, and I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience, all right? Now, the word that we want to look at, okay, is the word matter, okay? The word matter in Hebrew is the word matter. Write the word down. The word matter is the word debar. Is the word debar. The word debar as in debarim. The word debar means words, okay, or utterance, okay, speech. This definition is going to be very important, so I'm going to read it again. It is the esteem of Yahuwah to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out the words, the debar, the utterance, the words, the speech. Now, What I found interesting in this is that when we begin to look at pictorial or pictographs, this word debar is, that's the D, the bet, and the resh. All right. We have the dalet, the dalet. All right. We have which means the door. Okay. The dalet means the door. The bet represents the house, and the resh represents the head. Now, what's interesting about this is that when we begin to read it from the pictographs, this is letting us know now, in order to have this relationship, the person has to go through the door, the dalet. Once the person crosses the threshold and goes through the door, they're now in the bet. They're now in the house. So again, you cross the threshold and you're now going through the door. You're now in the house. And once you go in the house, you now meet the head. All right. So again, the dalet, the door, the bet, the house, the resh, the head. You go through the door. My argument is that Yahusha HaMashiach is that door. Once you go into the door, you're now in the house and you meet the head, and the head of the house is Yahuwah. Yahuwah is the head of the house. So now, once you're in the house, you're now in covenant relationship with the Father. Now, being that the Messiah is this door, because in order to get to Yahuwah, you have to go through the first principle or the first cause, which is the door. The same way that it happened when Israel was in Egypt. In order to be in covenant relationship with the Father, Israel had to have the blood of the Lamb on the doorpost, like I talked about 2 weeks ago in the show called Yahuwah in the Blood Covenant. So my argument again is that Yahuwah is that door. Once you go through the door, you're now in the house. You meet the head, and the head of the house is the Father Yahuwah. And once you're now in the house, you can now hear the debar, the words of the Father. And the words of the Father is TORAH. We can't miss. Okay, we'll get out of the way here. We can't miss. But again, the only way that we will be able to get this understanding is we understand again the principles of reading. Now, what I'm doing here now is not complicated because we were actually taught how to do this in grammar school. In grammar school, we were taught how to identify where's the subject, where's the verb, nouns, pronouns, adjectives, and whether the story is talking about future tense or present tense. Okay, and when you begin school, all right, you start at the kindergarten level. And so at the kindergarten level now, we understand now is that what's happening is that you're getting the literal meaning of the scripture. Okay, let's say from kindergarten down, let's say to the 6th grade. And then from there, you go to junior high school. In junior high school now is that you will learn, let's say, let's use mathematics for an example. We would use mathematics and we would do addition. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4. But there's an underlying hidden message behind 2 plus 2 is 4. Because 4 times 1 is also 4. All right. 2 times 2 is also 4. So again, we begin to understand, okay, how you can turn things around. You can flip it a little bit, but it still comes out to be the same thing. And we can do this now by understanding the different levels of math. And the same thing applies to the scripture, all right? I don't want anybody to think that I'm going off into any Kabbalism or anything like that. This is just basic, simple 101 understanding of the scriptures. All right, simple, basic understanding. All right, but we are going to have to take it up a notch. All right, we're going to have to take it up a notch because I know that there's a lot of brothers out here and have plenty of conversations that Aki, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone, man. I mean, just read it for what it is, and you know, and that's it. Period. And I say, well, you know, I can't do it like that, all right? Because I know that there's more to the scripture, all right? And one more example, just like if you were driving your car, all right? There's a stop sign there, all right? Only thing that we see now that there's a stop sign there, but there's a hidden message behind the stop sign. Because if you run the stop sign, there might be little kids running back and forth, or there might be oncoming traffic. And if I disobey the stop sign, what's going to happen now is I can cause an accident. So what happens now is that you see the stop sign and it just says stop. But again, we all know now that there's a hidden message behind the stop sign because the stop sign is actually trying to tell us something. All right. I just wanted to bring out that point there. Now, what else do we have here? Let's see here. Again, I want to do this again. The importance of the Olive Tav. All right. This symbol, okay, is very, very detrimental. I mean, we just can't overlook it, all right? And I believe that's what's been happening a lot of times to us in Israel. We've been overlooking a lot of important things, okay? So again, I've been doing this a lot, okay? It's becoming repetitive. I'm not trying to bore anybody, but this symbol, we can't overlook it, all right? Olive Tav. We can't overlook that symbol. Olive Tav is the one and only official ambassador of the Father Yahuwah. I'm going to say it again. What is Olive Tav? Olive Tav is the one and only official ambassador of the Father Yahuwah, and that ambassador's name is Yahusha HaMashiach, that atoning perfect sacrifice for the nation of Yashra'al. All right. Now let's get into the heart of this here. All right. What is this whole thing about? Relationship, Olive Tav, the Debar. What is all of this? Okay. What does all of this mean? And to get an understanding of what this whole thing is about, okay, because we're about to do a few things here. I'm going to be doing the foreshadowing tales of the Messiah. And in order to understand this now is that the Olive Tav is mentioned a total of 668 times in the book of Genesis alone. All right? In the book of Genesis alone, the Olive Tav is mentioned 668 times. And I have to write this symbol down. Okay? Olive Tav. All right, it's not an X. All right, let me just make this a little bit longer. It's not an X. Olive Tav. 668 times. But then we have something interesting outside of the Olive Tav. We have the Olive Tav. Let me just write another the other Olive Tav here. Olive Tav. Now we have also the Olive Tav mentioned 210 times. And this Olive Tav, again, like I said, represents the nail or the fastener. All right. This is the ancient Hebrew. This is the Paleo. In the Paleo, it will look like this. And that just represents the peg or the nail, the fastener. And what a nail or peg does, it brings back together something that was broken. All right. I just want to point this out. What Olive Tav does is that Olive Tav brings back through the nailing. Okay. He brings back what was lost. That was his responsibility, to bring back what was lost. So we have the Olive Tav mentioned 210 times. So in the book of Genesis alone, we have 8. We have Olive Tav being mentioned 800, and that's very significant. 878 times. So what does that mean to me? Anybody that's not believing that the Messiah existed from the very beginning, what you're actually doing is that you're missing the point 878 times where the Father is naming or trying to express to us now through the different levels of reading now that the Olive Tav exists. 878 times are we missing the point. And that's a lot. Okay? That is a very, very lot of reading. Okay? A lot of misunderstanding of what's going on. Now, we're going to be going to the book of Genesis. That's going to be the meat of today's topic. All right? Genesis, or the book of Bereshit, 22. All right, 22. And I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 14. All right, Genesis 22, 1, 14. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim did test Olive Tav Abraham. So we see now in the original writings, we have prior to Abraham's name, or attached to Abraham's name, we have Olive Tav attached to Abraham's name. Olive Tav. And the Olive Tav, again, is the official ambassador of the Father Yahuwah. The Olive Tav is the Father's signature. The Father's signature. Nothing can be done without the Father's signature. So we see now that the Father has a relationship with Abraham through Yahusha HaMashiach, this Olive Tav here. All right? And this Olive Tav here, when we look at the words together, the words Olive Tav means the strong covenant. The strong covenant. And the word covenant, again, is the Hebrew word brit. And the word brit is the word cut. The olive represents, in the pictograph, the head of an ox, and the tav, or the tav, represents the mark or the sign of the covenant, which we know now this was a responsibility of the strong one, is to follow or do the laws to the end. That's the mark, the sign of the cross. All right? So again, and it came to pass after these things that Elohim did test Olive Tav Abraham, and said unto him, Abram. And Abram said, Here I am. Verse 2. And Elohim said, Take now Olive Tav, your son. Now, we know now that this son that he's referring to is Isaac. So we see now that with covenant relationships, when we see again the Olive Tav attached to the name, this lets us know something. So we see now that the Olive Tav is attached to the son, and we know that that son is Yisach or Isaac. Okay, so we see this is very important. All right, very, very important. Now, let me just say this. All right, I don't want to lose anybody. I don't want to lose anybody here. Let me go to here. Okay, great, excellent. I don't want to lose anybody here. This is what's happening. This cutting is so important because we see this cutting happening first with Abram. Okay, Abram had the cutting of his of the foreskin from off his penis, and so now we have a situation now where now everything that comes from Abram, all right, is coming through the cutting of his penis. So now this makes all Israel responsible because we're all coming from the testicles or the reproductive organs of Abram because through the seed, all right, or through that zerah. I hope that wasn't too much, all right? The zerah, the seed. So we understand the importance of a circumcised penis, all right, which is very important because this is the mark of the covenant. This is the mark of the cutting. And so again, this puts us now in perfect alignment that there's an Olive Tav attached to Isaac, okay, the son of Abraham, all right? Let's go back here a little. If I'm moving too fast, or if I need to elaborate on anything, please send a message, all right? And I'll clear it up a little bit, all right? Definitely clear it up. Take now Olive Tav, your son, Olive Tav, your only son, whom you love, Olive Tav, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, which is chosen by Yah, and offer Isaac there as a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell you. Now, verse 2 is very important. When we go to the land of Moriah, there's going to be a particular mountain that the father is going to show, okay, Abram, where he must now sacrifice his son Isaac. But what I wanted to look at now is that I don't want nobody to miss some key things that's going on here. All right, there's some key things that's going on here. So just hold on 1 second here. Hold on 1 second. One second here, all right? There's a word that I want to look at here that I believe that can help us a little bit further than the literal meaning of the scripture. It said now, let's preach the clip a little bit, okay. It said a burnt offering. Abram was to offer up his son Isaac as a burnt offering. A burnt offering is called Olah. Okay, Olah. And the word Olah means burnt offering. The first time that I noticed this word burnt offering being made is during the offering that was made with Cain and Abel, where it talks about an Olah, a burnt offering, and it talks about a Minka, which is a meal, a cereal, or grain offering. Now, my argument is this, is that keeping everything in its contextual form, so we won't miss, how to read the rest of the scripture. Actually, Isaac is going to be offered as a burnt offering, which is associated now with as a sin offering. Okay, a sin offering. All right, so I just wanted to bring that out so that we can get a better understanding of what's going on here. Let's see now, verse 3. Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled Olive Tav, his donkey. So we're going to see now where, again, when we begin to look at prophetic shadow pictures now, there's an Olive Tav even associated or that's next to the word donkey. Now, again, I don't want to go into the Brit Hadashah, but those of us that do understand the redemptive role of the Messiah, we should see now where things are starting to play out later on. Okay, where we can say, well, listen, you know what? There was also a donkey involved in when the Messiah goes into Jerusalem, all right before Passover, letting the nation know that he was that perfect atoning sacrifice for the nation of Israel. And so we see the same thing happening here, where Abram now is preparing the donkey, okay, to go into Moriah is in Jerusalem, is in Israel, okay? And my argument is this, is that it is the same exact location where Yahusha HaMashiach gave up the Ruach, okay? That's what I'm saying here. Verse 3. Olive Tav his donkey, and took Olive Tav 2 of his young men with him. And so we also see now, again, in the Brit Hadashah, I'm not going to go to the scripture, But we also see now, in association now with this atoning sacrifice, there were also two men, okay, that was also on the stake while when the Messiah was in the midst. He was in the middle. And I don't want to go too far, but I already broke down what was going on in Genesis, where we have the seven letters, and in the midst of the seven letters, you have the Olive Tav, okay, which is a prophetic or a picture of the menorah. All right, I'll get into that. Excuse me, a little bit later. And took Olive Tav his two young men, and with him the Olive Tav. Okay, I'm gonna have to write it again. Just bear with me. We have the Nel, the Olive Tav. Okay, so I'm gonna read it again. Two of his young men with him, the Olive Tav, and Isaac his son, and cut the wood for the burnt sin offering, and rose up and went into the place which Elohim had told him. Then on the third day lifted up Abraham Olive Tav, his eyes. And so something was revealed to Abram, okay, by Olive Tav, excuse me, by Olive Tav on the third day. I'm going to read it again. Then on the third day lifted up Abraham Olive Tav his eyes, and saw Olive Tav the place afar off. Verse 5. Abram said to his son, to the young men, stay here with the donkey, and I and the boy will go over there and worship and come back to you again. Verse 5 is very important. Abram said to his young men, stay here with the donkey, and I and the boy will go over there and worship and come back. And come back. So where it says and come back, my argument is this. Whatever was to happen, Abram knew because of what was promised to him that he would resurrect. If he had to kill his son, that the Father had the power to resurrect and bring him back again. All right, that's real easy. Let's see. We come back to you again. Verse 6. And took Abraham Olive Tav the wood and of the burnt offerings, and laid it upon Isaac his son. So we see now again the prophetic shadow pictures now where even Yahusha HaMashiach had to bear his own cross or burden. All right. And he bared this burden for the nation of Israel. Because again, we have a situation. I already brought this out before in Genesis the 15th chapter, where it talks about now where Abraham fell asleep. And being that Abraham fell asleep, we see now where something, I'm just going to leave it at that. I already know what it is, but something went between the pieces. Okay. And when it went between this, went up and down between the pieces, they were actually making a covenant on behalf of Abraham. So if anybody was to break the covenant, the one that walked between the pieces was the one that was going to die. All right. That's very important. That was the one that was going to die. Verse 5. Abraham said to the young man, stay here with the donkey, and I and the boy will go over there and worship and come back to you again. And took Abraham Olive Tav, the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took in his hand Olive Tav, the fire, the Olive Tav, and a knife. And both of them went together. Isaac spoke to Abram, his father, and said, my father? And Abraham said, yes, my son. And Isaac said, I see the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb? All right, where is the lamb? The word lamb in Hebrew is the word tilah, or we might see it with an A, okay, or talah. Okay, where is the lamb? Again, when it talks about where is the lamb, remember, what was being used, okay, to be that atoning sacrifice for the nation of Israel before the Messiah came was a lamb. And that lamb had to be without spot, without any blemishes. And so I just find it interesting that Isaac already knew from the very beginning, and also Abraham. In order to have the proper atoning sacrifice, you need a talah, a tele. Tele. This is what you need, and this is a lamb. You already knew this. And again, what I'm saying now is that this lamb is a representative or representative of Yahusha HaMashiach. In order to have a sacrifice now, you have to have a lamb in regard to a burnt offering, that is. You need a lamb because the importance that we're looking for in this lamb is the blood. The blood is very, very important, all right? The dam, the blood. Let's see now. And Isaac said, I see the fire in the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? Abram said, my son, Elohim will provide. The word will is future tense. Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So both of them went together and they came to the place which Elohim had told them about and built there Abraham, Olive Tav, an altar, and laid in order Olive Tav, the wood, and bound. And that word bound is important too, all right? I just want to touch on it a little bit, all right? The word bound. That word bound is going to be very important later on in the scripture. But that word is, let's see, make sure I got this right. Akeda, which means the bounding or the binding of Isaac. Okay, so this word is very, very important. And we're going to get into that a little bit later because this word, Akeda, the binding of Isaac, is actually associated with this word right here, Tila or Talah, which represents the lamb. All right? Akeda, A-K-E-D-A-H. Verse 8, Abram said, my son, Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So both of them went together, and they came to the place which Elohim had told them about, and built there Abraham, Olive Tav, an altar. So an altar is being made by Abraham for the future, okay? Yahuwah will provide. So he's building an altar. This altar now is going to be symbolic of Yahusha HaMashiach. Where we at here? Altar, and laid it in order. Olive Tav the wood, and bound Olive Tav Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood, and stretched out Abraham Olive Tav his hand, and took Olive Tav the knife to kill Olive Tav his son. All these times that I'm saying Olive Tav is actually, I don't want people to think that I'm making these things up. Every single time that you see me make mention of the Olive Tav is in the Hebrew. Just like I made mention earlier, this is mentioned over 800 times in the book of Genesis alone. So we're going to have to answer to why are we making this this mistake in not identifying who and what is this Olive Tav that's talked about again over 800 times in the scripture. All right, that's very important. Verse 11. And the angel of Yahuwah, the messenger of Yahuwah, because Yahuwah, and again, when it says the angel of Yahuwah, all this is talking about is a mediator. Somebody is speaking on behalf of the Father. This is how the Father establishes his relationship. So he's sending a messenger, a malach, an angel, to speak on his behalf, and let's see what this angel is saying on behalf of the Father. And the angel of the messenger of Yahuwah called to him out of Shamayim and said, Abram, Abram. And Abram said, here I am. And he, the messenger, said, do not lay your hand upon the boy or do anything to him, because I know that you fear Elohim, seeing that you have not withheld Olive Tav. That's very important. Verse 13. And Elohim, excuse me, and lifted up Abraham. No, excuse me. I'm going a little too fast here. Verse 12. And he, which is the messenger, said, do not lay your hand upon the boy or do anything to him, because now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing you have not withheld, you have not withheld Olive Tav, your son. It says Olive Tav, your son. Olive Tav, your only son, from me. So let's draw a picture here, what we've gotten so far. We have a father in this particular situation here in the book of Genesis, the 22nd chapter. We have a father, okay, who's about to sacrifice his only son. This is symbolic of what is going on in the Brit Hadashah, okay, or in the Shamayims, okay, where we look at this lamb that was slain from the beginning, the Reshit. He's going to give up his only son to be this atoning sacrifice, this burnt offering, this olah for the world. Isaac was to be a sin offering, but it tells us here, Olive Tav, your son. Olive Tav, your son. This is a prophetic shadow picture of what's going to happen later on down the line, where the father, Yahuwah himself, is going to sacrifice Olive Tav, the lamb, go through a keda, or a keda, a binding, which goes back now to TORAH, the Messiah being the lamb. All right, I hope I didn't go too fast with that. Again, if there's any questions regarding anything that I'm saying, please leave a message. All right, please leave a message. Now, there's something that I want to paint. All right, there's another picture I want to paint. So I'm going to erase some of this here. All right, I'm going to erase some of this here. Let's get a better understanding again of what's going on in these scriptures here. Because what we're going to do today is that we're going to go through what I see as conclusive evidence that the Messiah existed from the very beginning. Let's see if we can learn anything today through the Spirit of the Father of Yahuwah. Now, this is the case that I want to build, all right, in regard to verse 13. This is what I'm going to do. Let me read verse 13 first, all right? Let's do that. Let's read verse 13 first. And lifted up Abraham, Olive Tav, his eyes, and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham took Olive Tav, the ram. The ram is being called Olive Tav, and offered him up for a burnt offering or sin offering in the place of his son. The word that I want to look at is the word thicket. Thicket, all right? You can come back to that word thicket there, all right? Now, like I said, now, I want to build a case, all right? And this case can't be far-fetched. It has to fall in line with Torah, with the scriptures, all right? So I have a few things written down here, so just follow along. If there's any questions, let me know. This is what I saw from the very beginning. After the finished project of Yahuwah of the recreation of the planet Earth, or the Arats, Elohim saw that it was tov, that it was good. And to prove this, let's go to Genesis 1, the first chapter. Genesis, the first chapter. I'm going to read verses 10 through 12. And Elohim called the dry land Aratz, or earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was told, that it was good. And Elohim said, let the earth put forth grass. So this is what I want to capitalize on, especially verse 11. And Elohim said, let the earth put forth grass, seed producing plants and fruit trees, each yielding its own kind of seed, and trees yielding its own kind of fruit. And Elohim saw that it was good. All right. I just wanted to read that there. All right. Just meditate on that for a while. So again, after the finished project of Yahuwah, of the recreation of the planet Earth, Elohim saw that it was tov, that it was good. I read Genesis 1, the first chapter, verses 10 through 12. But after the disobedience of Adam and Hava, we notice a severe punishment also taking effect on the land. And what I see now is that the earth, the grass, and the trees that's bearing fruit is going to go through what we call adaptation. Adaptation, or some type of mutation happen. Okay, so my argument is this: is that what happened? Let me move it to the side here. Okay, again, the word adaptation and the word mutation, and I believe that this is what happened after the sin that happened in the Garden of Eden, and I just want to prove that. All right, I'm going to go to the book of Genesis, or the book of Bereshit, the third chapter, and I just want to read verses 17 through 18. I want to prove this mutation and adaptation. And said, 17:3. Again, Genesis, the third chapter, verses 17 and 18. And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of Yahusha and have eaten from the tree which I command you not to eat from, the ground is cursed on your account. The ground is cursed on your account. You will work hard to eat from the ground all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat Olive Tav herbs in the field. So after the curse, okay, or after the disobedience of both Adam and Eve, we see now where these plants now are going to build up like a resistance to Adam, where we get now where it talks about in the book of Genesis, the 22nd chapter, verse 13, it talks about a thicket. And my argument is that because of the sin that happened in the Garden of Eden, the plants and the trees that bear fruits and herbs for us now, it's now going through an adaptation and it's going through a mutation. All right. And this is going to give us a better understanding on how to read the rest of the scripture. Okay, now, we notice a severe punishment also taking effect on the land. And I just read Genesis, the third chapter, verses 17 to 18. What are thorns? Thorns are modified, sharp-pointed stems occurring at the base of a leaf or the ends of twigs. Now, you can find this in this definition in any biblical encyclopedia, all right? Spines, for example, a barberry or a cacti. These are modified leaves or parts of leaves and are generally thinner and shorter than thorns, or what they call prickles. Examples, they give a rose stem, all right, which are slender outgrowths of the plant on the outer layer, which we know as the epidermis. Plant thorns were brought into the world after man sinned. That's what I believe. Okay, I'm going to say it again. Plant thorns became resistant. These plants, these herbs and things like that became resistant to man, and Plants and thorns were brought into the world after man sinned. Now, what I've also found interesting now is that in the Bible, there are 14 different Hebrew words that are used to describe weeds, thorns, thistles, and thickets. Okay, and I just want to write down some of these words, all right, because I know I just said something that might bring up a lot of controversy, but as long as it can be proved through the scripture, there should be no problem. I'm going to take away this word thicket for a minute, and I'm going to move it up a little bit, all right? Because I want to go back to that word thicket. Word thicket. Thicket. All right. You can also do your own private research on this. I'm just going to give you the strong numbers. Like I said, in the Bible, there are 14 different Hebrew words that are used to describe weeds, though they are often translated as thorns, thistle, briars, etc. All of this is all associated, all right? The Strong's number, the Hebrew Strong's number, 6975. 6791. 7063. 5544. 6799. 4534. 2312. 5518. 7897. Excuse me, 7898. 5285. 2336. And in the Greek, we have 173, 942, and 4647. All right. What I want to do is that to help build this case up stronger, I want to read some of those. Some of these words here. All right, these strong numbers. I'm gonna go to 6975. I want to make this quick. All right, 6975. 6975. 6975. We have the word quotes. Quotes. All right. Prickling, a thorn. And then you can go to the theological workbook of the Old Testament. It also gives you a number that you can check out as number 2003. All right, I'm going to make this quick now. 6791. And we're talking about these thorns, this thicket. And this is what I'm talking about, something that happened after the sin of Adam or Adam in the garden. 6791. I'm not going to go through all of them, all right? Just maybe just the first three. 6791. 6791 is the word sane. Sane. Meaning to be pricky, a thorn. A cactus hedge, a thorn. And let's go through one more, because we should have the gist of it, but just only going by three. But I noticed 14 different words here. 7063. 7063. 7063. we have the word kumshum, kumshum. And it just says, again, a prickly plant, a thorn, but there's a whole lot of definitions to this. So, again, I just wanted to bring out the fact or the point, which is going to help us get a better understanding of what's going on in verse 13. All right, so if a person was really interested in what I'm trying to paint here, is that if you to go through these Strong's numbers, even through the Greek, it should give us a better understanding of Yahusha HaMashiach, okay, and what's happening in verse 13. All right, so I'm going to read verse 13. I'm going to go back to 22. Go back to Genesis 22. And using those Strong's numbers, we should be able to get a better picture. And lifted up Abraham, Olive Tav his eyes. So the one that lifted up Abraham's eyes was Olive Tav. And Olive Tav now is, all right, the mediator that's going to bridge the nation of Israel back into covenant relationship with the Father. And lifted up Abraham, Olive Tav his eyes, and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham took Olive Tav, the ram. Again, the ram is being called Olive Tav, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the place of his son. Now, what does this ram have to do with thorns and thistles? We see now in the crucifixion process of Yahusha HaMashiach that they also took thorns, all right, and wrapped them and placed them upon his head. Now the thorns represents adversity. And we see now this lamb that was caught in the thicket was he was actually in pain. Because if you was to take thorny pricks, a thorny branch, okay, and you were to intertwine them and twist them together, and you were to place them upon your head, mimicking a crown, it will cause much pain. And so this is a symbolic picture of Yahusha HaMashiach, because this ram is being called Olive Tav. Abram finds a ram in a thicket. The Hebrew word samak. All right, he finds this lamb there. And again, this lamb is symbolic of Yahusha HaMashiach. I'm just going to read verse 13 one more time. And lifted up Abraham, Olive Tav, his eyes, and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. It says that he saw, and he looked and he saw behind him a ram. This is Hebraic messianic understanding, is that the past is in front of you, okay, because you can see everything that you've done throughout life, all right? So your past is in front of you. This is the thing. The future is actually behind you because you can't see what's behind you. So what's happening now is that this is letting us know that in the future, there's going to be a ram or a lamb sacrificed in behalf of the nation of Israel, because we see that Isaac was called back. Because a mere man cannot be that atoning sacrifice for the nation of Israel because of what happened in the Garden of Eden. What happened in the Garden of Eden, we see now where man is no longer in the image of the Father. After the sin that happened in the Garden of Eden, man is now in the image of fallen Adam. Even though man he's walking that righteous lifestyle, he still has that ability to fall. What we need now is this perfect sacrifice where the individual can walk the walk all the way to the end. And this father, Abraham, is a prophetic shadow picture on how the Father himself is going to offer his only begotten son. Verse 14. And Abram called the name of that place Yahuwah Yareh, which means Yahuwah will provide. Yahuwah will provide. The word will is future tense. Future tense. So we see now, and on this mountain in Moriah, where Yahusha HaMashiach gave up the Ruach, the Spirit, okay, the Father in the future will provide a lamb. And that lamb was Yahusha HaMashiach. And with that, Yashra'al, I pray that you were able to get some understanding on why I believe the Messiah existed from the very beginning. And in the next show, give me a couple of days, what I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to be answering the next question. Can a man atone for the sins of the whole world? All right. And with that now, I might be going through a little of the Brit Hadashah. All depends how the Father, have me to run this. And I'm going to also be talking about whether or not there would be animal sacrifices, okay, in the reign of the Messiah, okay. And with that, brothers and sisters, I pray that everyone have a beautiful Shabbat. If there's any questions regarding anything that I'm saying, please leave a message, and I'll talk to you real soon. Have a blessed Shabbat. Shalom.